So again, thanks for tuning in. My name is Eric Elliott, and I'm the Advanced Hunter Education Coordinator with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Tonight is the final part of a scoped rifle series that we've done. In part one, we looked at tips regarding buying a scoped rifle. Part two, we looked at how to mount a scope to a rifle. And in this webinar, we're going to look at how to sight in a scoped rifle. So as a segue to this, is it just me, or have any of you been a little bit frustrated when sighting on a scoped rifle? Sometimes it can be super frustrating. You're looking at your target, expecting to see these tight groups, and finding out that something somewhere went terribly wrong. And then to even make it more frustrating, you jump on YouTube and you see some expert saying how it should only take you 2 or 3 rounds. And then you look at your empty box of 20 cartridges, and your target looks like you've been shooting it with buckshot, and you wonder, man, I need to get this figured out. Tonight, our goal is to try to take some of the mystery out of sighting in your scoped rifle and hopefully save you some frustration and even some money and bullets. And here to help us tonight are Rick Kagawa and Alex Van. Both are hunter education instructors in the Southern California area. Both also volunteer their time in Boy Scouts, and both of them know their way around a scoped rifle. Rick is going to be taking the lead tonight with this training, and Alex is going to be helping my captain and me with questions that you have. So Rick, Alex, thanks again for being here tonight with us and serving us this way. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Good evening, everybody. Yep, one of the most mysteries is that people think that it takes 20 rounds to sight in a rifle, and that's not really true. You can do it in 2. So we're going to kind of give you the tricks of the trade to show you how to do it. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. So please put it in the Q&As, and I will definitely answer. And I have a question for you guys. You're here to shoot with a rifle and hunt with a rifle. Put in the chat a number on the screen of, you only get one animal you're going to shoot with your rifle that you want to hunt. Either your favorite animal, or maybe you're new to hunting and you want to choose one of the animals. And I just want to see what you guys are going to shoot.
Well, how about you, Rick? What would you pick on that list? And how about you?
I've shot more pigs than anything else. I mean, that is the easiest one because we're in California and you can hunt that on public land. Antelope tags are hard to get in California. Elk tags are almost impossible to get. Bighorn sheep are tough. Bear tags are possible. Deer's easy, and rabbit and squirrel a lot of fun. So, David, only one. I see 4 or 5 numbers up there. So I just wanted to have some fun to see what you guys were going to do with it. There's a couple varmints, deer. There's an elk in here. I like shooting elk. I've shot a couple of them, but very good, very good. All right, well, let's get rolling then. There. All right, we're going to talk first about, now you have your rifle, your scope mounted, it's level on your rifle, all your screws are, I'll give you this little story about, remember, if you were in the last seminar, I talked about blue Loctite. Well, I've got a small story, a personal story in the last month. I've been struggling with a very expensive long distance rifle, and I'm going to take another class on shooting rifles, and I want to get a 200 round sighted in. I want to get everything all squared away. This rifle is spray and pray. It's plus or minus 6 inches at 100 yards. I'm going, what the heck? Guess what? I forgot to Loctite the Allen screw that attaches the bolt to the stock. So it cost me about 30 rounds of ammo, and so trying to figure this out, but I did figure it out finally. It got loose enough that I could actually wiggle it and see that it was wiggling, but I'm going to Loctite that with blue Loctite. So blue Loctite on all your screws on your scope, your scope's level, everything's good. Now we're going to figure out how to get those crosshairs to match where you want it to go. So the first one is called bore sighting, and this is the true bore sighting method. You take the bolt out of the rifle first, make sure it's unloaded, take the bolt out of the rifle, set the gun on a vise, a rest, something that's relatively stable. Sandbags work. If you have a gun rest, gun vise, that's probably the best way to do it. Set it on there so that you can not touch the rifle and have it stay in the same place, and you can look in the scope at the same time. So that's kind of the trick that we want to do. And so you set the gun in a vise, rest, sandbags. You look down the barrel because your bolt's out, and you can see the target down there. So what you do is you place your barrel directly on the target that you want to hit, right where you want to hit in the bullseye, and you can see it through the scope. I have a picture of it in a little bit. And then you look through the crosshairs in the sight, and if they're on target, then you should be at 25 yards. You should be on target with the first bullet. But if they're not on the target, then move your crosshairs so that they're matched to where the target is. Look, make sure you check your barrel again, because everybody touches stuff, it moves. So you got to check your barrel to make sure the target's still in sight. Look up and down a couple times, and if they match, if the crosshairs are on the target and you're looking through the barrel at the target, you should be dead on the paper at 25 yards. So that's the first way to do it. And everybody doesn't know that much about this one because you don't hear it very often. But when you're at the range and you don't have, and your red dot doesn't work from your laser sighter, here's a picture. If you see this is the picture down the barrel of a rifle, and you see the red dot, that's actually the target. Then you look up to see where your crosshairs are in your scope and see if they're on the target. If they match, you probably will hit the target pretty consistently, even almost at 100 yards sometimes. But most of the time, I tell people start at 25, especially when you're learning how to do this. All right, now this is a laser bore sighter, which most people have heard of, seen, touched. So there's bushings that you use. These laser bore sighters can be either a fake cartridge that has a laser in it, or you can buy the ones that are on a stick with multiple bushings for each caliber. They can go anywhere between 17 caliber all the way up to 12 gauge with these multiple ones. And you'll see, I have a picture. So you mount the bore sight in the muzzle, you correct the bushing for the caliber, and then you turn on the laser. Look in your scope and align the crosshairs on the laser. The further you sight this in, the more accurate it will be. If you only do it at 50 feet, it's not going to be as accurate as if you do it at 30 or 40 yards. I tend to do it at night in my garage so I can put the laser on my neighbor's house, but they can't see me with a rifle in the garage. So, but that's how I do it at about 40 yards.
Rick, I have a question for you. Someone asked the question, what about other rifles than a bolt action, like an AR style platform, or any other type that's not a bolt action, maybe a semi-auto rifle? How do you do
you can do it with an AR. It's just you have to pull the bolt out and put the upper and lower together and be able to figure out how to stabilize it works the same because you can look down an AR chassis and see through the barrel. It's the lever actions and some of the pump actions you can't do that with. But if you don't have that opportunity, then my answer is use a laser bore sighter. So you just put it in the end of the muzzle and you can see it.
Thank you.
So then you turn on the laser, you look through the scope, align the crosshairs on the laser, and again, the further you do it, the more accurate it should be. Is a big change. This is my laser bore sighter. You see these rings here on my bore sighter? Those are different barrels I put this in. So you can see that I've used it for anything from 12 gauge down to 22s. And these are the different bushings. These screws, this end is a screw, and it goes into the end of this, and this taper then expands the bushing, so it opens up and snugs itself in the barrel, so you're centered in the barrel. That's the theory. So here's a picture of a laser bore sighter. This one happens to be green. But here's the crosshairs. Here's where the laser bore sight is pointing. You just need to move your crosshairs to wherever the laser bore sight is. So this crosshair right here needs to be moved over the laser bore sight. You should be good at up to probably 25 to 50 yards on paper, a 12 by 12 inch piece of paper. So that's kind of the thing to look at. Now, when you're at the range, you're going to start. The first thing you want, if you have an adjustable parallax on your scope, make sure that you adjust the parallax first before you adjust the scope ocular ring. Because the ocular, here, wait a second, let's go forward. This is the ocular lens. This is the eyesight of your eyesight of the scope, ocular lens. And the ocular lens, this is adjustable with a screw that changes its focus. Because if you're out of focus, you're not going to hit anything anyway. So you got to focus everything. But the first thing to do is adjust. If you have adjustable parallax, adjust the parallax. And there's a video that we're going to show in a little bit about adjustable parallax and what parallax is and all that. And then you adjust your ocular, because if your parallax is out of adjustment, there are some points that you will not be able to get the ocular lens to focus if the parallax is out. So make sure you move your head so the crosshairs don't move. And again, you'll hear this again in the video. And then adjust your ocular focus second. So you start out with the parallax adjustment if you have it, and some of them are on the front, on the objective. Some of the parallax adjustments are on the objective lens in front, but most of the target ones are on the side, like this one right here. All right, here's the video, guys. This is going to talk a little bit about parallax adjustment and why and what it is.
Hey guys, Ryan Kleckner with Gun University. We've already covered the basic parts of the scope, and now we're doing a deeper look into each one of those parts and seeing how they work. In this video, we're going to talk about the parallax adjustment knob or the target focus. Before I talk about the adjustment itself, let's discuss what parallax is. Parallax is something you do not want in shooting. It is the relative shift in position of two objects at different distance. What does that mean? Well, do this with me. Take one finger and put it at arm's length in front of you. Put another finger closer and close one eye. Using your one eye that's open, line your fingers up so they're perfectly in line with each other, and then move your head a little left to right. Notice how it looks like your fingers are changing position, even though they're holding still. That's parallax. We don't want that when we're shooting, because if you're looking through your scope and your reticle is here and the target's out here, you might be moving your rifle to realign the reticle back up and pointing it off the target. Some scopes, like hunting scopes, have a fixed parallax. It'll tell you right there on the box at what distance the parallax for that scope is set. However, on higher end target scopes, you're almost always going to have an adjustable parallax. On these, it is an adjustable knob on the side of the scope. However, you can encounter some scopes that have what's called an adjustable objective. That means the parallax is adjusted by turning the front of the scope. But on higher end long range shooting scopes, it's always going to be a parallax knob here on the left side of the scope. Now, you heard me before call it a target focus knob also. That's because it really is the same thing. In the scope, the target's image is focused at one spot within the scope, and the reticle is at another spot on the scope. If they're not in the same focal plane, that parallax problem can occur. So by turning this parallax adjustment knob, we're actually adjusting the target's focus and bringing that target focus on the same focal plane as the reticle. So if your eye does move, they move together. There are ways to make sure you have the right parallax set. And one of them is not looking at the numbers on these knobs. You will see numbers on here that have different yardage or meter adjustments. They might get you close, but I do not recommend relying on them because everyone's eye is different and they're not actually set perfectly from the factory. Instead, the best way for you to check that it's set up properly is one, see if the target is blurry or not. One of the problems when you're looking through a scope, if you've ever had where you're trying to focus back and forth between the reticle and the target's image, that tells you something's wrong. Either your ocular focus, which we covered in another video, or your parallax adjustment are wrong, and you need to fix them. Another way to check this out is look through the scope and turn that knob while you're moving your head. You will see that reticle and the target image move independent of each other until the setting is correct, and they'll move together. So next time you're out shooting, especially when you're changing distances to targets. Make sure you don't forget to adjust your parallax. You're going to have a much better time hitting the target and being consistent from shot to shot. Hey guys, Ryan.
Oops. Okay, guys. So on one of my rifles, this is the parallax adjustment, and he's correct. I don't depend on it. It gets me close in the neighborhood of where I want it, but the marks are not super accurate. They're different for everybody. So this is a parallax mark on one of my rifles, and you can see it goes. It starts actually, if you turn it, it starts at 25 and goes all the way to 500 to infinity. So, and most hunting rifles that do not have adjustable parallax are generally set their parallax at about 100 yards. If you have a 22 and you're going to shoot varmints, most of the ones without adjustable parallax are set at 50 yards. So that's not always the case, but that's a close approximation of what usually happens. So you're at the range. You set your target at 25 yards. Just put a couple rounds in paper at 25 yards just to make sure you're even close. I'll show you, I use 1-inch grid targets, and there's a reason why I use 1-inch grid, so you can measure your distances using the paper itself. And so at 25 yards, if you did everything we just talked about, you should be on paper at 25 yards. Here's a grid sheet. It's got 5 targets on it. Each one of these grids, these sections here are 1 inch by 1 inch. So you can know how much you have to move, and you can do that by the number of clicks instead of poking holes in paper for 30 or 40 rounds trying to figure out how to move your image. So at 25 yards, you're going to want to adjust your scope about 1 inch low. And you'll see there's a ballistic chart at the very end, but the bullets rise from 25 yards out to 100. And if you're going to hit the target at 100, most cartridges are about 1 inch low at 25 yards, and they rise that 1 inch in the next 75 yards out to 100 yards. So just look and see how far you need to move your crosshairs. And this is the magic of the 2-bullet process. Now, everybody has to understand the difference between a MOA scope and an MRAD or mil scope. There's not that much difference. We'll go in a little bit, but there is, so an MOA scope, 1/4 of an MOA per 4 clicks at 25 yards. So at 25 yards, your crosshairs will move about 1/4 of an inch at 25 yards with 4 clicks. MRAD or mil scope, the measurements is a different type of measurement, and it's 1 mil per click. So each click is 1 mil, and 4 clicks would move a little more than 1/3 of an inch at 25 yards. And we'll convert it to 100 yards. 100 yards is a little easier than this. Took me a while to figure out these numbers. So let's talk a little bit about minutes of angle and mil radians, or MRAD or mil and MOA. Minutes of angle is more like, there's metric nuts and bolts on some cars, and on the older cars there's standard nuts and bolts. Well, MOA is more equivalent to standard 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch nuts and bolts. And a metric bolt won't go into a hole that is made for standard, and vice versa. So they're not interchangeable per se. And so the standard measurement, inches, feet, and yards, is more like MOA. Mil radian is more like a metric measurements, because everything's divided by hundredths or thousandths. And so mil radians are millimeter, centimeter, kilometer. There is not much difference between either one. They're just different forms of measurement. They're different ways of measuring stuff. My hunting scopes are mostly MOA. My target and range scopes are mostly mil radian. It's just the way it works. And I can get minute of angle scopes. A lot of times you can get them cheaper than you can a mil radian scope. Mil radians tend to be the more expensive scopes. So That's what I for hunting most of the time I use MOA, and it's because I'm cheap. I want to get a cheaper scope. So then move out to 100 yards. Take a shot, you should be on paper. So at 100 yards, one click on your scope equals 1/4 of an inch.
Can I ask a question for you, Rick?
Yeah, Alex.
When you're at 25 yards and you shoot on the paper and you're not where you want to be, how do you adjust the scope?
There are adjustments of elevation and windage, side by side, side to side, and up and down. And you use the top, it's used, the elevations are always on the top of the scope. Excuse me, let me get my scope out. So on this scope here, this is the elevation, this is the top turret, and this is the side turret, this is the side by side. So that's how you adjust them, is turning these, and each one of them will click, you'll feel a click, a tactile click in them, and each click is equal to either this happens to be an MOA scope. Each click on that scope is equal to about 1/4 an inch at 100 yards. And the MRAD is about 1/3 of an inch, so it takes about 3 clicks to do a little more than an inch. So here's a example of a shot on paper. Okay, here's a group right here. This is, let's see, okay, if this is 1 inch here, then this is 1.5 inches high, approximately 1 3/4 high, and about 3/4 of an inch off the center of the group, off of the center of the target, which is right there. If I want to move this, let's say, well, here, let's go over here. It's 3/4 of an inch to the right and 1 inch high. In mil or MRAD, it will take 3 clicks down and 2 clicks to the right to approximately get it in the center of the red. With an MOA scope, it will be 4 or 5 clicks down and 3 clicks to the right. We'll bring it right dead center. So if you have a group, or even you shoot one and you trust that one, the one shot, you can actually move your target to the center of the scope. The other way that Alex is talking about is that you keep your scope on, you move your crosshairs to the strike zone, and you move the crosshairs to the center of the target by keeping the rifle still. I think that I've tried that. I find it much harder than just counting numbers and counting clicks. There's nothing wrong with either system. People do it right both ways. But it's just, I get frustrated with because the rifle always moves every time I try to move the turrets. So it's just me. So I just use this system with the gridded paper, and I had a buddy bet me last Sunday I couldn't do it at 100 yards, and I did in 2 bullets. Got it on paper once at 100. The second bullet was dead on. After I did it, the guy says, "You know, this rifle's no fun anymore. It's boring. It hits the same place every time." Well, duh. So in hunting, there's a huge debate about whether you zero your rifle exactly at 100 yards or 200 yards. So Alex, where do you zero your rifles in at?
200 yards.
Okay, and how do you do that?
I start at usually when I put a new scope on a rifle, it'll be at 25 yards. I go out to 100, and then I go out to 200.
Oh, you go out to a full 200.
I go out for the.
You can actually save yourself some money. At most cartridges, you can look at a ballistics chart and you can find out how high it needs to be at 100 at 100 yards to hit at 200. Most of the time, it's between it's usually 1.5 inches to 2 inches is pretty much. If you shoot 1.5, 2 inches high at 100 yards, you're going to be dead on at 200. You don't even have to find a 200-yard range because they're hard to find.
But most of the time, it's a confirmation hit at 200 yards versus.
Oh yeah, if you want to spend the ammo to do that, that's great. But I'm just saying you don't have to. And so there is a lot of, because if you're 2 inches high at 100 or dead on at 200, do you think you can hit almost anything between 100 and 200 yards? You bet. Yep. So that's why a lot of people zero them at 200 yards. Why hunting rifles are 0 to 200? and my competition rifles are all at 0, but I can do both. It doesn't really matter. So you look at your cartridge box to find out the drop at 200 yards. Most of the cartridge is a little more than an inch, inch and a half to an inch. So here's the trajectory. This is not a particular, I picked one that was not a particular cartridge. This is a generic cartridge. I don't even know what caliber this is set up for, so don't ask me. But here's a trajectory chart, and it's interesting to look. Remember I told you at 25 yards, you need to be about an inch low? Look at this. This cartridge at 25 yards from 0, if it's 0 to 100, it's 1.2 inches low at 25. Half an inch low at 50, 0.2 inches low at 75 and 0. And then at 200, it's 2 inches. It's a 2-inch drop. So if you wanted this rifle to be zeroed at 200 and you're only using a 100-yard range, you make your impact point on your target 2 inches high on this particular bullet. Now, here's some interesting numbers that I just noticed today when I was studying this chart. If you want at 25 yards with this cartridge, if you want to come up in MOA, 4.5 clicks will bring you 1.2 inches. If you want to come up in mils, it's 1.3 clicks in mils, or 1.3 mils, excuse me, 4.4 mil MOA in this one right here. So that's 4 clicks. That's come up 1 mil is about, this is about 4 clicks on a mil scope. Here's the one here. You want to come up a 1/2 inch, then and all you do is you're taking this number. If it's half the distance to 100, you just take the number. Whoops. You just take the number, and it gives you how much you have to, how many MOA you have to move to get the trajectory you want. I thought that was fascinating, but it actually gives you the number you have to move. So if you sight it in the rifle and you want to have a 0, and your scope has a 0 stop, some competition scopes have what they call a 0 stop. It will, when you get to your 0 point on your elevation, a lot of times they'll be dialing a competition scope. They'll be dialing 2 dials up to get out to a long range, and then they want to be able to just turn it back the other way and hit a 0 on their scope, and it'll be at 0, so it stops it. And that's adjustable on some scopes. This is where you set your 0 stop right now when you're at your place you want it to be, whether it's 0 to 100 or it's 0 to 200. This is where you put your 0 stop in. Most of the competition, anybody using a 0 stop scope is probably going to put the 0 stop in at 100. And any questions? Alex, did we get any questions?
I
I've got
do
a
have
question for you,
question.
Rick. Rick, I've got a question for you about, what do you use for a rest? Are you using like a lead sled, or are you using bags? What would you recommend?
Cheapest is bags. You can get bags and fill them up. You can get bags for $15 on Amazon, and then you can fill them up with sand. The only problem is the sand is I tend to use rice because sand tends to bleed through the fabric because it's so fine, but rice doesn't bleed through the fabric. So I tend to use rice, but it's way more expensive because you got to buy rice. I tend to use, most of my rifles are set up with bipods. So I tend to use a bipod on the rifle, and then in the rear I use what they call a squeeze bag underneath the stock in the back. And when you're once you're set up, you can squeeze the bag, and it will cause the elevation to move up and down when you squeeze your bag, because the stock's moving up and down in the heel of the comb.
Yeah. So this is,
And previously I used lead sleds before that too. I still have a lead sled for certain rifles.
yeah.
One of the things that I like to do is I'll use my lead sled at the range when I'm comfortable and I feel that my rifle is zeroed. Then I'll do it prone. Then I'll do it kneeling. Then I'll do it standing, because you'll find that you will shoot differently in different positions. And when I was asked the question before, when I shoot out to 200 yards, I also have a ballistic chart that I make myself on how it changes with weather conditions and temperature and the different projectiles that I'm shooting.
That's great. How about, have you had, this is to both of you, Alex and Rick, have you ever had a rifle not pattern well at all? So it's not able to shoot good groups? And if so, what's a common problem? What's a common reason behind that?
Ammo.
Ammo is the most
Ammo.
common. Or if your stock bolt is loose to the action, yes, that doesn't help.
I think
It's true, Rick.
we also have a question from Chris. He says, he asked the question, as an older hunter, what is the best way to pull the trigger given arthritis? And the way you pull the trigger, whether you pull straight back, off to the side, all of that can affect your accuracy. I don't really know how to answer that with arthritis. I know that my father, he couldn't use his index finger anymore, so he used his middle finger, but that's how he trained. So, because he would shoot a lot, and it's whether you get a better trigger job, so it's easier to pull, but then you have to make sure that you practice with that trigger, because if you go for a lighter trigger, it's gonna pop real quick if you adjust your trigger to a large pull.
My suggestion, it's not cheap, but my suggestion to the person that's asking about arthritis in the trigger is to use a 2-stage trigger that has a little bit of pull. It's very soft pull before you hit a hard spot. That hard spot is probably 0.8 to 1 pound trigger pull, but it won't like inadvertently go off because it's a 2-stage. You have to hit that with your finger and get to that point before the thing goes off. So you have to have a finger on the trigger before they'll go off. But the 2-stage triggers are very, very light, and I love 2-stage triggers personally. I've set up most of my rifles with 2-stage triggers on them.
Yeah, two-stage triggers are great, but like you said, they are a little more expensive.
Yeah.
But
and the other answer to Eric about the accuracy or getting groups, if you want the tightest, like I have a 300 Win Mag that hates one type of ammunition. I won't name which one, but it hates one type of ammunition. At 100 yards, I'll get 6-inch, 8-inch groups. If I get the right ammunition, that gun will shoot the same bullet. 300 Win Mag will shoot the same bullet virtually in the same hole with the correct ammunition. So the ammunition does matter. And if you're getting poor accuracy with one ammunition, my suggestion is try another one. If you want super accuracy, keep trying other ammunition, and then the ultimate is reloading yourself, which gives you the ultimate control of the ammunition.
Okay, I got a question for you guys on groupings. How, for hunting purposes, what do you think is a decent group?
Well, what range are you talking about, Eric?
We're talking, let's just say 100 yards.
2-inch group.
Okay.
I mean, this is my take, is that if you can hit a 4-inch circle anywhere the range you're shooting, whether it's 300, 400, 700, if you can consistently hit a 4-inch circle at any range, you're good. Now, the skill set and the practice, the further out you go, I think I've said it in the other seminars that most hunters in California should not, or most hunters, period, in the world should not shoot more than 200 to 300 yards at the most. They don't practice enough to spend time to get and like Alex said, if you're at altitude, you're gonna act slightly differently at 10,000 feet than it will at sea level.
Right.
And
Alex, I really appreciate it.
Unless you know all the parameters of your rifle,
yeah,
you should be able to hit that 4-inch circle somewhere out there. And a 4-inch circle, I'd say most people it's 200 yards.
Yeah.
When I taught my son and daughter to shoot, I told them I would like to see your grouping smaller than your fist, because that's about the size of a deer heart. And because I strongly believe in an ethical kill, and if you can shoot the size of your fist, a grouping, that would be ideal. I know on targets, if you, like for me, I do a lot of archery, you'll have a pretty large area, so you can take out, the lung, but I always go for a heart shot. And if you can do your grouping the size of your fist, you're doing great, especially at 100 yards.
Love it, Alex. The other thing I appreciated what you said earlier, Alex. Even once you have your rifle completely dialed in, to continue to practice. I think you were saying practice standing shot, kneeling shots, and isn't that incredibly important? I mean, that's probably how you're going to be shooting in the field, and if you've never done it, you're going to be experiencing a whole nother level of accuracy issues, especially freehanding.
And the newest thing now is to carry a tripod in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so I won't shoot a standing shot even at 100 yards anymore. And you have to remember, off a bipod, you don't get a lot of bipod shots when you're hunting because you're in the grass. It's only 6 inches rise. So you don't get a lot of those. So I carry a tripod with me that has a saddle in it or attaches to my rifle. And that's how I shoot, is off of a tripod.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions. One is, what does dope mean? Someone, I have a comment here, what does dope mean, your gun? What does that mean? Dope your gun.
I can't remember. It's a military term. It has to do with your experience of shooting in different. Somebody answer. I know somebody in this group knows what dope is. They're looking up on Google.
And then another question, data on previous engagement.
There you go. Thank you, Alex. I can't go out and go search it. So
no, I kind of knew
data on previous engagements is the terminology for dope. And what it does is they know that if they shot at these atmospheric conditions at this altitude with this bullet at this temperature and humidity, they know that's how the flight of the bullet is going to go.
And that's why I go back to when I go to the range, when I'm out shooting, I bring my notes and I make notes so I have those corrections. And that way I know exactly where I'm going to shoot in different kind of conditions. Another one, someone made a comment, remember, bench accuracy is probably better than field accuracy. Absolutely. But there's no reason why your field accuracy can't be just as good as bench accuracy. I made my kids love it, because they love going shooting. And I made sure they can do it prone, sitting, and standing. The other thing is, learn how to use a sling. A sling will really tighten up your group, especially in a kneeling position or even in a standing, because that sling will tighten up your arm into that rifle and into your body so that it becomes one. And that's something that you have to practice. And it's just, again, practice.
I've actually seen a pig shot at 650 yards off of a tripod. So wow. in a sitting position, and it was within 3 inches of where he wanted it. It was a dead heart shot immediately. So it can be done, but it was with a very accurate rifle and using bench ammo. It was a very ideal conditions to shoot with that thing. But we were with a guide and he had his gun all dialed in. He says, "Here, just shoot it. 650 yards, you're in." And it shot it right in the heart. So that was last year. So it's not like it's impossible.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of experience. That guide had a lot of time and money in that gun. In fact, I think that gun he told me was $20,000 to get that, to be able to do that.
Someone asked if we have an Excel file for the information that one should track at range. I say a lot of it you find online, and a lot of it you find on the ammo. When you Google your ammo and you try to get it from the manufacturer, you'll get a lot of the information that you need on how to track it and the ballistics of that projectile.
It depends on how deep you want to go into that rabbit hole, Alex. Yeah. There's a group called Applied Ballistics that will give you the deepest rabbit hole you can find. It's what most snipers in the international world use their charts. And it has everything from temperature, altitude, it's called density altitude, which has humidity, pressure, barometric pressure, and all that stuff. And they take the ballistics coefficients of the bullets, and they actually tell you where to dial. In fact, some of the new rangefinders give you my new rangefinder I just got. You can actually get a dial out to 2,000 yards with a rifle with it when you point it at the with applied ballistics. So there's some stuff out there that's amazing, super expensive, but it can be done.
Rick, can you type that into the comments so everybody can see that location? Because I got a question on that.
Which one?
Type in comments the location for those charts. Applied Ballistics.
Oh, Applied Ballistics, it's a website. You have to subscribe to it.
Okay. Yeah, somebody already entered it. And then I was asked what size sling. I like a 1 inch or 1.25 inch sling. Only because if you get too narrow, if you try when you wrap it around your arm for strength, I prefer a little wider padding. So that way, most people think the sling is just to sling it over your shoulder. It is true, you can use it for your shoulder, to carry it, but I use it as a way to attach the rifle to my arm and to my chest so that it makes a more stable platform.
My suggestion, I'm going to go out and say carry a tripod. You can do a standing tripod out to any distance with a tripod. Honestly, it's amazing what those tripods can do. So,
Hey, Rick, can you,
that gets me out of missing with a standing shot, Alex.
go ahead and stop sharing your screen, Rick, and we'll answer some more questions. Yeah, I just have a comment on, and maybe a question for you guys. How far in advance to hunting season are you getting your rifle sighted in and dialed in?
Year round.
Yeah.
If I have multiple rifles, and if I want to choose a rifle, I'll usually take it 3 months ahead, and I'll start shooting that particular rifle, building the load I want if I haven't built it already, and go from there. Usually it's a 3 to 4 month lead time up for me, but most of the time I'm shooting my rifles year round.
Yeah. Just in my experience as a game warden, it was just always so frustrating to have somebody shooting their rifle, sighted in their rifle on opening day. And it's like, it regularly happened in the field, somebody blasting off rounds, and you go tracking them down, and that's exactly what they're doing. And they're shooting at a rock at 300 yards or 400 yards. And let's just say that doesn't help other hunters, and that's probably not the ethical thing to do, to wait last minute to do that.
Yeah, you don't wait last minute. That's for sure, because you got to practice before you even get into the field.
Samuel put something in the chat I want to answer. Samuel, just start anytime that you're not waterfowl hunting, take your rifle out and get the more consistent, the more experience you get with your rifle, you're going to be much more successful. And if you do fly with a rifle, by the way, my suggestion is sight it and reshoot it before you go out, because I missed a 6x7 elk because my rifle got bumped and I didn't sight it in. So, all right, Eric, are we
I think we're
good to go?
Yep, we're just getting a few more comments, but I think people are just saying, and I want to just reiterate that, is just practice. Whether you're bow hunting or you're rifle hunting.
Or shotgun hunting.
Yeah, shotgunning, I forgot that, Rick. For sure, just get out in the field and practice, and it's going to make you more of a confident hunter. And I honestly think that helps a lot with what is termed as buck fever. When you have been practicing 6 months straight, or as Alex mentioned, year round, and you know what your rifle can do, and you have that opportunity at that buck of a lifetime, you're still probably going to get buck fever, but you're going to have so much more confidence in your performance, knowing, hey, I've done this so many times at the range. This is a chip shot. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. for tonight's webinar. And I just want to take a second and kind of plug some cool stuff that we have planned for the Advanced Hunter Education Program later on in 2024. The registration link is in the QR code in my background. And we've got some upcoming webinars, which include how to call and hunt wild turkeys, common mistakes to avoid in a wilderness emergency. And we're going to be doing an elk hunting webinar. We're going to do a pronghorn hunting webinar. So we have a lot going on in the works. And thanks for tuning in tonight, Alex and Rick. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve the hunting community this way. And just can't say that. These guys are volunteers, and they're volunteering their time to do this to help me and help other hunters. So thanks again, and we'll see everybody later.
All right, thanks.